we're going to go over the top 10 WordPress hosting companies one by one and talk about the pros and the cons for every single one of these companies, which means by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which company you should go with to host your WordPress website. And as a bonus, I have the hookup with all these companies. I have discounted pricing for hosting for every one of these companies. There's links down below in the description that will give you the best deal you can find on hosting, no matter which company you end up deciding to go with. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna reveal to you who my favorite web hosting company is. Out of all these hosting companies, I'm gonna share with you the one that I use and that I recommend. And it's the most affordable and, in my opinion, the best web hosting company out there. So stay tuned for that. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Travis. I've done over $10 million in online sales, and I've tried out a ton of hosting companies. So make sure to smash the like button, because in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly which one of these hosting companies you should go with. And we've tested all these companies, and in this video, I'm gonna tell you for all these companies what their uptime is, their downtime, their page loading speeds, and everything you need to know about all these different companies. We've tested them all so that you can find out which one is the best one for you. And throughout this video, I will also be ranking all these companies from S tier all the way to F tier, so you can see which is the best hosting company out there. And let's get started first with SiteGround. And SiteGround is one of the most famous hosting companies out there. It's a solid company, and one of the first pros with SiteGround is their uptime is 99.99%, which is amazing. And for those of you that don't know, uptime is the percentage of time that if you have a website with SiteGround, that your website would be up. Now, you would think that your website would be up 100% of the time, but it's just not true. When you work with a hosting company, their goal is to get as close to 100% uptime as possible. But just like your electricity occasionally goes out, even though it's up 99.9% of the time, with website hosting companies, your website will be down a certain percentage of the time, but hopefully if you go with a good one, it's gonna be very small. Now, some of these other companies we're gonna be talking about later in this video, they actually have really bad uptimes. The other factor that you're gonna wanna consider is what is your page load speed. And this is how fast, when someone goes to your website, will your page load for them. And you would think that this is almost instantaneous, but no. But with different hosting companies, you have different page load speeds time. And your goal is to get this as close to zero as possible, because the longer someone has to wait for your website to load, the more likely they are to move on and exit out of your website and go to a different website. And with SiteGround, the page load speed is 1.73 seconds. We're gonna be talking about some companies with some very fast page load speeds later in this video, so stay tuned for that. The next pro for SiteGround is they're actually one of the 3 companies that's recommended by WordPress themselves. WordPress only recommends 3 companies to host a WordPress website on, and SiteGround is one of them. The third pro is that it's extremely easy to set up a WordPress or a WooCommerce website using SiteGround as your host. Now, there is a company I'm gonna be talking about later in this video that is even easier to set up a WordPress or a WooCommerce site with, but you're gonna have to stay tuned for that. SiteGround also has very affordable prices, though they're not the most affordable. HostGator is a hosting company that I'll be talking about later in this video, who is probably the most affordable hosting company out there, and they're one of the highest quality. And I definitely recommend sticking around till later in the video when I talk about HostGator. This is one of my favorite hosting companies. Another pro with SiteGround is when you sign up for SiteGround, you'll get a free SSL certificate, and SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer. An SSL certificate will make it so that your website is secure. And if you are planning on accepting credit card payments, or if you have a website where there's going to be passwords used, maybe people have to sign up for accounts, you need to have an SSL certificate. In fact, a lot of credit card companies will not allow you to take credit card payments unless you have an SSL certificate for your website. And this sounds very complicated, but SiteGround and other hosting companies make this very easy to implement on your website. It's a one-click instant thing, and SiteGround does give you that free SSL certificate. Now, that being said, there are a lot of cons for SiteGround, and the first con for SiteGround is, as I mentioned, their pricing is actually kind of mid-tier. There is other hosting companies out there that are a lot more affordable, and in my opinion, they're just as higher quality as SiteGround. Though recently SiteGround did just lower their prices a little bit, and if you are gonna go with SiteGround, I do have the hookup with them. There is that discount code in the link down below. Another con with SiteGround is they actually have pretty low amounts of storage that you're allowed to use. And with their lowest plan, you can only store 10 gigabytes of data, which is a lot smaller than other hosting companies out there. They also cap how many monthly visitors you're allowed to get. With their lowest plan, you can only get 10,000 monthly visits, which is not a lot. So if you're looking to have a website where a lot of people are gonna come to your website, SiteGround may not be the best option for you. Another huge con is with their startup plan, you're only allowed to create one website. There's other hosting companies we'll be talking about later in this video where for the same price, you can create 100 websites. SiteGround is also not available in every country. It's not available in India, for instance. And even though their pricing isn't the best, it's still decent. But a huge thing to be aware of is they have very high renewal fees. So when you sign up with SiteGround, even though it might be relatively inexpensive to start with, the price actually increases as soon as your initial contract is over. And overall, SiteGround used to be my favorite hosting company, but there's actually a new hosting company that I recommend way more than SiteGround, and I'll be talking about them later in this video. And overall, given all the pros and all the cons, I would rank SiteGround still as S tier. It's one of the best hosting companies out there. But warning, SiteGround used to be my favorite hosting company. It's no longer my favorite hosting company. There is another hosting company, one of these that I would also rank as S tier, and I may actually prefer over SiteGround now. I'll be talking about them later in this video. The next hosting company we're gonna be talking about is Bluehost. And Bluehost is one of the most popular hosting companies out there. And it's one of the other 3 hosting companies that's recommended by WordPress themselves. And Bluehost is one of the most trusted hosting companies out there. In fact, the first time I ever purchased hosting, this was almost 10 years ago, I purchased my hosting from Bluehost. But if I were to purchase WordPress hosting again today, I would not go with Bluehost, and I'll get to why that is in just a minute. But that being said, they do have relatively cheap plans. And part of the reason why they have such cheap plans, and part of the reason why they're able to offer these really cheap prices, is because what they do is they go around and they buy smaller hosting companies and they aggregate them into a giant conglomerate hosting company. And when we tested Bluehost with the test website, it had an uptime of 99.92% and a downtime of around 6 hours, which sounds not too bad, except for the other website that I had with Bluehost, a personal website, had a much higher downtime. We had over 40 hours of downtime throughout the year. And for me, if my website goes down, that's a lot of money that I'm losing. So I do think that a big con with Bluehost is they do have a decent amount of downtime. But an even bigger con with Bluehost was the page load speed was 6.72 seconds. That is extremely slow. That means when someone goes to your website, they're having to wait 6.72 seconds for your website to load, which ultimately means that people are going to leave your website probably and go to a different website. But the biggest con that I see with Bluehost is that they are overpriced. I've had a ton of issues with Bluehost, including in the past those slow page load speeds and all that downtime that I was talking about. And one of the things that nobody talks about with Bluehost, and one of the reasons why they were able to get so popular so quickly, is because they were one of the first hosting companies to offer an affiliate program. This is where people would create websites promoting Bluehost, and they would make a kickback every time they referred someone to sign up for Bluehost. And this made it so that a lot of people were promoting the Bluehost hosting company. And even though other companies were better than Bluehost, people would promote Bluehost because of this affiliate program. Nowadays, all the different hosting companies out there have an affiliate program. And to make this video that you're watching right now 100% unbiased, I actually signed up for the affiliate programs for all these hosting companies. So I don't care which hosting company you use, this video is gonna be completely unbiased. Just make sure that if you want to get that discount code and support the channel, use one of the discount links down below in the description when you sign up for your hosting. It actually saves you money and it helps to support the channel. And because of this, it allows me to research all these different hosting companies and explain to you which one the best one is. And overall, I would rank Bluehost as D tier. I do not recommend Bluehost. Even though they used to be really good, this is not a company I've had great experiences with, and there's so many other better hosting companies out there. The next hosting company is one that I see so many people get trapped into using because this company did an amazing job with marketing and brand recognition. But you need to know that there are some huge cons if you decide to go with this company. Luckily, I'm here to help, so pay attention. And this company is called GoDaddy. And there's not a lot of pros with using GoDaddy as your hosting company. They are a fine company to get a domain name from, and your domain name is your www.whatever your website name is.com. But even to get a domain name, GoDaddy's actually a little bit overpriced. Namecheap.com is actually a lot more affordable and just cheaper than going with GoDaddy.com to get your domain name. And the one pro that I can think of with GoDaddy, and literally the only one that I can think of, is that they do offer phone support. But other than offering phone support for your hosting, there's not really a lot of other pros for GoDaddy. In fact, a lot of the other hosting companies we're gonna be talking about throughout this video also offer phone support. So I wouldn't recommend going with GoDaddy just because they offer that phone support. And with GoDaddy, there are actually a lot of cons. First off, GoDaddy has an annual uptime of 99.85% with 11 hours of downtime, which is really bad. You don't want to go with a hosting company that has under 99.9% uptime. And their page load speed was 2.97 seconds, which isn't terrible, but Google recommends if someone has to wait longer than 2 seconds for your website to load, they will leave. And if your website takes longer than 2 seconds to load, it's going to hurt your Google rankings. It's gonna really mess up your website. So a page load speed of 2.97 seconds is not great. GoDaddy is also overpriced. GoDaddy spends a ton of money on marketing, getting people to buy a domain name. And their domain names are, like I said, relatively affordable. They're not terribly priced, even though, as I mentioned, you can get cheaper domain names by going to sites like namecheap.com. But the way that GoDaddy really makes their money is they upsell you to buy other things that you don't really need, including buying hosting with them, which is, as I mentioned, just way overpriced. The plans and pricing for GoDaddy just don't make sense. Basically, what happens with GoDaddy is they get people to buy the domain name and they trick them into upgrading, into buying their hosting. On top of that, the user interface to creating a website with GoDaddy is confusing to say the least. Even though they do offer phone support, I've seen that their support team can actually be a little bit rude and not that helpful. And I personally know a lot of people that have had bad experiences with GoDaddy support. And overall, I would give GoDaddy a ranking of F tier for hosting. Do not use them no matter what. There's so many other hosting companies we're gonna be talking about that are better in just about every way. Now, before I go into the next hosting company, make sure to like this video if you haven't yet, because I spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours testing all these different hosting companies for you so that you can know which one is best for you. And the next hosting company we're gonna be talking about is A2 Hosting, and they have an annual uptime of 99.98% with a downtime of just 2 hours. But a con with A2 Hosting is they had an average page load speed of 2.98 seconds. Another con is their website backups are only available with their higher end plans, meaning if you want to back up your website just in case something happens and you want to be able to restore your website to a previous version, you're gonna have to pay extra for that functionality. And although A2 Hosting does have a lot of pros, I would say that because of their slow page load speed times and the fact that you have to buy a higher end plan in order to get backups, I do not really recommend A2 Hosting. I would say it's slightly better than Bluehost, and I'd put this at C tier. Another reason I don't recommend A2 Hosting is they actually got hacked a few years ago, and it seems like they were never able to fully bounce back And the backend of A2 hosting can also be somewhat confusing, and it's not the most beginner-friendly hosting company to start with. HostGator is another popular WordPress hosting company, and HostGator has an annual uptime of 99.94% with just 3 hours of downtime, which is pretty good. And their average page load speed time is 4.12 seconds, which is not great. As we mentioned, you want to keep that at 2 seconds or lower. They do have good customer service and relatively affordable prices, but here's the dirty little secret about HostGator. They're actually owned by the same parent company that owns Bluehost. And since HostGator and Bluehost are owned by the same parent company, I would really just recommend checking the prices in the link down below, and whichever one of these two is cheaper, just going with them. Now, to be fair, I don't really recommend either one of these hosting companies. I would put HostGator at C tier. It's not a terrible hosting company, but it's not a great one either. But if for some reason you want to try them out, as I mentioned, I do have the hookup with them. Links in the description down below. Next up is WP Engine, which is fast and reliable, and they have an uptime of around 99.97% with just 2 hours of downtime, and they have an average page load speed of 1.3 seconds. And WP Engine has great customer support. Overall, it's probably the most professional and arguably the best hosting company out there, except for the fact that it is 10 times the price of all the other hosting companies we're talking about in this video. That being said, WP Engine is a great hosting company if you don't want to get involved with any of the technical stuff of running your website. If you want to have a website that's going to just always work, that's going to have really high uptime, great page load speeds, great support, and you have a lot of money to spend, then WP Engine might be a good option for you. But I personally would not recommend them because I think they're overpriced. Still, I would put WP Engine as A-level tier. They're almost S tier. If they had better pricing, they would for sure be S tier. And I want to be clear, if you do have the money to be able to afford them, this could be a good option, but I think there's other hosting companies that are just about as good for a fraction of the price. InMotion is another popular hosting company, but I couldn't really find a lot of pros for them. One big pro for InMotion is they have an uptime of 99.9%, but a con for them is their average page load speed is 2.93 seconds. Another con with InMotion is they're just more expensive than a lot of the other companies out there, and you don't really get a lot of extra features for all that extra money that you're going to be spending. And InMotion is a little bit slower than a lot of the other hosting companies out there. So I'm gonna rank them as B tier, though they probably could also be C tier, but let's just call it B tier. Still, I don't recommend them, but there's just 2 more hosting companies left to talk about in this video, including one of my favorite, one of the most affordable ones, HostSinger, that we'll be talking about in just a minute. But first, let's talk about DreamHost. And DreamHost is actually the 3rd company that is recommended by WordPress themselves, which is a pretty big pro for them. But other than that, I don't really see a lot of pros for DreamHost. They have a relatively low annual uptime of 99.91% with 7 hours of downtime, and the average page load speed is 3.94 seconds. Plus, they're more expensive, slower, and less reliable than a lot of the other companies that we've been talking about in this video so far. And their prices continue to go up even though their quality isn't getting better. So I would put DreamHost as either C or let's call it D tier, because they're really not a great company and you should probably be avoiding them. And that brings us to HostSinger, which is one of my favorite hosting companies out there. And a big pro for HostSinger is their uptime of 99.99% with only 3 hours of downtime and really impressive page load speed times of 1.32 seconds. And that's partially because of their NVMe storage that we'll be talking about in just a second. But one of the biggest pros for HostSinger is they are the most affordable hosting company out there. And I do have the hookup with HostSinger. There is a link down below that will get you a discount on their plans. Plus, you can use the coupon code Travis to get an extra 10% off. And their hosting only costs a couple dollars per month, which is insane that you can have a website for just a few dollars a month. But what makes HostSinger so interesting is not only is their hosting affordable, they're actually a really good company. They're fast, they're reliable, and setting up WordPress or WooCommerce with HostSinger is easy. They have a one-click setup that will basically install your WordPress website or WooCommerce, set up everything for you with just one click. In fact, I even have videos here on this channel showing you how easy it is to create a WordPress website with Hostinger. It literally just takes a few minutes. They also operate pretty much all over the world. They offer their hosting in over 40 different languages in pretty much every country out there. But there are a ton of other pros with Hostinger as well. For instance, they offer NVMe storage, and this stands for non-volatile memory express. And this is probably the fastest type of storage and hosting that you can get, and that's what makes their website so fast. Other websites offer SSD storage, which stands for solid state drives, and there's other types of storage out there as well, but NVMe is the fastest storage, and Hostinger has this. Another pro is even on their lowest end plans, you're able to create 100 websites. With their higher end plans, you can create up to 300 websites. And I can tell you from personal experience, once you create one website and you see how easy it is, you're probably gonna wanna create more than just one. And since Hostinger allows you to create over 100 for the price that other people charge for just one website, it's kind of a no-brainer. They also offer a free domain name. A lot of people will pay GoDaddy or Namecheap to get a domain name. You don't need to pay. You can actually get a free domain name with Hostinger. You also can get unlimited free SSL certificates. They do also offer a free CDN, which stands for Content Delivery Network. And this is basically where they put your website all over the world so that wherever someone is loading your website from, there is a data center close to them, which will make it so that your website will load up even faster. They also offer free email, which means that you can create custom emails from whatever websites you're hosting with Hostinger. For instance, your name at yourcustomdomainname.com. And they offer that for free. A lot of other hosting companies have you pay extra for that. But that being said, there are some cons with Hostinger. The first one is they don't offer phone support, though they do have 24/7 chat support. So that is a positive. But if you need to get on the phone with someone, Hostinger may not be the best option for you. The backend can also be a little glitchy at times. And the reason for this is they have their own patented H-panel, and that's why they're able to be so much more affordable than other companies. Other companies use cPanel, which is not their own technology. Hostinger created their own backend custom built, which allows them to lower their prices. And H-panel usually works really well, but every once in a while you might run into a glitch. And I will say, over the years, it's gotten a lot better. Another thing to note is Hostinger does have relatively high renewal fees. So when you sign up today for your Hostinger plan, using the link down below in the description, make sure you sign up for a long period of time, because once your initial sign up period is over, you will have to pay a slightly higher renewal fee. Their renewal fees are cheaper than a lot of the other hosting plans out there, but still, I recommend signing up for as long of an initial period as you possibly can to lock in those really good deals. And I would put Hostinger at S tier, but something to keep in mind before we announce the winner of which hosting company is the best for you is that it does matter what you're looking to get from your hosting company. For instance, if you want the fastest hosting company out there, I would go with A2 Hosting, because even though they're not the best, they are the fastest. However, if you want the most reliable hosting company out there and you don't want to have to mess around with any of the technical things, go with WP Engine. And because even though they are more expensive, they are more reliable and they are easier to use than a lot of the other hosting companies. But now I'm going to reveal what I think is the best overall hosting company and which one I think you should go with. And it's really almost a tie between SiteGround and Hostinger. Both of these companies are S-tier level, and SiteGround has great options. They have different tiers of plans, and you can get up to 40 gigabytes of web space, unlimited websites, and you can get page load speeds up to 30% faster than a lot of the other providers, which means that your website will get more visitors and more sales. However, Hostinger wins, in my opinion, for the best hosting company out there, because not only do they allow you to store way more data than SiteGround does, you can also create over 100 different websites, even with their cheapest plan. And on top of that, you get a free domain name, free email, unlimited free SSLs, and Hostinger has data centers all over the world, and their website builder makes it extremely easy to build a website. One thing we didn't even talk about is they have AI integrated into their platform, meaning that you can create a website using AI, which makes it very easy to create a custom website. Hostinger is also about a third of the price of SiteGround, meaning it's a much better deal than SiteGround. But warning, there is one huge con about Hostinger that I have not talked about yet, and that is that they are constantly raising their prices. When I first found out about Hostinger, they were charging around 99 cents per month for hosting. Now their hosting is closer to $2 to $3 a month. So if you're looking to create your own WordPress website, I would sign up fast for Hostinger before they increase their prices. And again, I do have the hookup with Hostinger. You can click on the link down below and use coupon code Travis to get an extra 10% off your hosting when you sign up with Hostinger. But that being said, I do have discount links for every single hosting company out there. There are links to all the hosting companies that I talked about down below in the description. So choose whichever one you think is best for you. Just make sure to use one of those links. Again, I personally recommend Hostinger. So click on Hostinger or click on whatever link is best for you. Sign up for hosting and get started creating your WordPress website today. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.